Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running. You can listen to USA Prepares on your phone. This number is dedicated to just us, 605-477-3249. Joey is live with us in Michigan. Welcome, Joey.
Hey, good morning, Vince. How you doing?
Well, I'm a little frosted. And I've been staying frosted, not just because of the cold, but because of events all around us. For example, I replaced, and this may seem like something that, why would we bother talking about it? But there is really an important reason. I'll share that with the class in just a second. So we had a dishwasher, and it was made by General Electric, and we bought it from Lowe's. It was on sale because no one seemed to be interested in this particular black dishwasher. Bought a black stove, and it looked like they had yellow tags on them. They were at a discount, steep discount. It looked like somebody might have bought it and said, you know what, I don't want it, and returned it. So we got those two appliances, and they've both been marginal at best. As a matter of fact, they've been lousy. But here's the thing about the dishwasher. I replaced it with a used Whirlpool dishwasher. Paid $100 for it on the internet. Picked it up, and it was hardly used, and I was glad to get it. It was a Kenmore. So I'm frosted for several reasons. One, the Kenmore dishwasher blows away the General Electric. Now, the General Electric was, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of price point, the General Electric was probably at a 7 or an 8 in terms of, near the top of their line. The Kenmore is probably somewhat equivalent, maybe a 6 or 7 rather than 7 or 8. And the General Electric is probably a 2000, I would think 2005 model. And the used Kenmore / Whirlpool is just a couple years newer. And the reason I replaced it was I would open the door of the General Electric, and it would feel slippery. Like, what's going on? Why is it slippery? Is it not rinsing properly? Am I poisoning myself and the family because the detergent is not rinsing off the dishes? What's going on? I would experiment with less detergent, more detergent. Nothing could fix this. So I replaced it. I couldn't believe the difference between the Sears Kenmore / Whirlpool model and the General Electric. The Sears washes the dishes cleaner. They don't feel slimy. The tub doesn't feel slimy. What that means is the dishes are being rinsed properly. And I'm wondering if we've been poisoning ourselves with that General Electric dishwasher. So here's my opinion, class. Don't buy a General Electric stove. Don't buy a General Electric dishwasher. That's my opinion. I won't do it. I always have liked Whirlpool products better. So, as a preparedness instructor, I suggest that if you have a dishwasher, regardless of the brand, at the end of the cycle, when it's all finished and you can open the door to take your dishes, glasses, cups out of it, feel the door, the inside of the door. See if it feels slimy. If it does, adjust your detergent downward to see if it'll still wash the dishes and not feel slimy. If it feels slimy, that's because the detergent is still on the dishes, cups, knives, etc. And I've got to tell you, it looks like we bought new Oneida stainless steel knives, forks, and spoons. They came out shiny after just 2 washes with the Whirlpool. Now, they looked kind of clean, but they'd have these spots on them, these like water spots. They don't have that anymore. So that's my thought on dishwashers. Joey, do you have any comments before we go into today's topics?
No, the only question I would ask is, if you had a dishwasher and the power went out, it's going to freeze, how would you push the water out of there? How would you, because I know there's a little trap in there, and how do you get the water out of the dishwasher?
Okay, and that's a really good point. What I would do, dishwashers today, now I don't know, in the last, I would say, probably 20 years, dishwashers are typically connected with like a power cord, like a 14-gauge electrical cord with a plug, and you plug it in to an outlet under the dishwasher. That's typically how they're done today. They used to be hardwired in. So you'd have Romex or BX cable that'd be hardwired into the electrical junction box in the bottom of the dishwasher. That's not the way they're done today. So most people would have the modern, newer style with a plug connection. So here's what I would do. I would take those 2 screws off the bottom of the dishwasher, and I would have something ready. Like I'd have a generator, or I would have an inverter that's 1,000 watts or greater. And I would use that inverter with a 12-volt car battery and a 100-foot extension cord, and I would cycle that dishwasher to get the water out. If I couldn't do that, what I would do is I'd make a solution of salt water, probably a teaspoon of salt, mixed with just a couple ounces of water, like a quarter of a cup of water, stir it in there, and I would pour it in the bottom of the dishwasher. And the reason for that is salt water freezes at a much, much lower temperature than just plain water does. And the proof of that is that's why they put salt on ice and snow to melt it, because salt mixed with the water will freeze at a lower temperature. So I would do those 2 things. The same thing with a toilet tank. If I had a situation where I absolutely could not get heat in that house, and I was concerned about the S-trap bursting in water pipes, like drains of sinks, toilets, showers, and all that, I would mix a salt solution, and I'd pour it down there. Now, salt is corrosive. I mean, it is really corrosive. So I don't recommend that you do it willy-nilly. You've got to have a good reason to do it. But in the situation where you might lose your plumbing, where you'd have to rip out a ceiling below to fix a trap for a shower or a bathtub or a toilet above, I would certainly do it. And there's no problem with doing it if you have plastic plumbing. What are your thoughts about what I just said, Joey?
Well, I think it's a pretty good idea. I was going to buy some of the purple windshield antifreeze, but the dishwasher, I wouldn't want to put that in there. I don't use it that often, but when you're getting 25 or 40 below zero, you don't know what's gonna take place.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, now years ago, I would hear my grandfather. Now this would be in the 1950s. He would say, "Got to check the alcohol in the car." Now he used that term, and he also used the term icebox. Well, we have at this farmhouse in Missouri my grandparents' old icebox, and it was, you've probably seen it in the kitchen. My mom stripped it and refinished it. And, it's a box about chest high, has several opening doors on it, and the iceman would come around with a block of ice about almost 1 foot in dimension, so 1 cubic foot of ice. And you'd buy that and you'd put that in the ice box, and there was a water pan to catch the ice as it melted into water, and then you would dump out the water bucket, if you will, at the bottom of the ice box. And that was used to keep your food cold before they had electronic or electric refrigeration. So my grandfather would use the term icebox for refrigerator, and he would use the term alcohol for antifreeze, because they used to use alcohol. They would mix wood alcohol, with the water in the radiator to prevent freezing. So if you have alcohol, you can do the same thing. Just pour that down the drain, and that will lower the temperature at which the water/alcohol mixture will freeze. So there's several ways. And of course, if you wanted to, you could use antifreeze. But antifreeze is poisonous. If a cat or dog gets, several drops, they lick it because it tastes sweet. But it tastes sweet, literally. They like it. It'll kill them. So you have to be really careful with antifreeze. But I wouldn't, if you have a municipal water system, I wouldn't be too concerned about pouring even automotive antifreeze down the drain. How much? Oh, I don't know. Maybe 3 ounces down a toilet. Maybe 4 ounces down a toilet. 2 ounces down a sink drain. 2 ounces down a bathtub drain. 2 ounces down a shower drain. But you want to make sure that no one is going to be drinking that water. If it goes into a septic system, that's okay as well. And those are the approved methods of getting rid of used antifreeze. Pour it down the drain. Literally. That's typically an approved method for disposing of it. And I guess if you wanted to, you could use some of that blue windshield washer solvent, if you will, that you might have in your garage. You can pour that down the drain as well. You want to pour it down. So, and look at it. It's probably minus 32 or minus 20 degrees rated. Look at your temperature and figure out a dilution rate that makes sense. So all those things will work. But when you first asked me, I was thinking, here I am trapped. I can't get out and I can't buy anything. So what do I have on hand that I can use? And that's why I said salt initially. When we come back, Joey, what would you like to talk about?
We can talk about cold weather.
Okay. How about toilet tanks bursting? How about these water towers bursting? Yeah. We'll be right back. Joey in Michigan. Joey's with us in Michigan. Joey, cold weather. Your thoughts?
How many people were prepared? And it's interesting. I was looking at some different weather numbers today. Like Wisconsin was 25, Chicago was 21, 25 below zero. We were 0, 1 degrees, 4 degrees. That was before wind chill. But, nobody realizes at about 20 degrees, 17 degrees, when you breathe, the hair in your nose starts to get crunchy. And at 15, not so good. And anything below 15, all the rules start to change. And I mean, just like when I was on hold before the show started and the guy's talking on the radio, we're going to have a heat wave. Well, what the people have to listen to the weatherman to tell them, they didn't go out and look at a satellite map to see what's coming. They didn't look at they didn't know the storm was coming. And I was listening to that guy at DEF 2030, and he said it was strange how the media didn't promote this, and they knew that weathermen knew the severe cold weather was coming, and they didn't really tell you how severe till the day before it showed up. Did they not want people to be prepared? Because a lot of people are simple, and they don't pay attention to what's going on because they had a busy world, texting their friends, being on Facebook, telling them. And I can only imagine all the stories they have today, what broke, what didn't work, their car didn't start, all kinds of miserable stuff. And some of those pictures you sent me was interesting, like that toilet box that froze and it just broke off. And I was looking at that picture, and I had really slow internet, so I only seen the valve, the ice cube, and I had no idea what that was till the whole picture immersed. And I'm like, holy crap, that's the back of a toilet. And when the box cracked and broke off, it left a giant ice cube with your valve in there. And, how many insurance companies are going to honor this damage? Because apparently, somebody was saying, if the state declares an emergency, a state emergency, then it becomes more of a federal issue. And then the insurance companies, because I'm reading stuff about those fires out in Paradise, California, and a lot of people, the insurance companies aren't paying them because, well, that's a state emergency. That's going to become a federal issue, and then they'll get 10 cents on the dollar because it's kind of interesting. How would you feel if you were an insurer? You were looking to get your insurance because when they're taking your money, you're their best friend. They can do everything for you, but when it comes time to be on the other end of the receiving, who are you? Where did you say you are? Oh, I don't remember. Have you ever had any of them problems then?
Yeah, I did. We had a barn, and there was a tornado in Joplin, about 100 miles from here, and we had some high winds, and it blew the roof off two of our barns, in sections of the roof. And I called the Farm Bureau company, Farm Bureau Insurance. They claim they're horrible. And the guy came out and he said, "Geez, the reason I had him out was because I got a check for $750 to repair the roofs." I said, "I can't even get anybody to haul away the roofing metal that was blown off for $750, let alone replace it." He said, "Well, actually, we offered you way too much money." And I lost it right then and there, and I started screaming at this guy. I mean, literally, if there's any Italian in me, it came out right then and there, and I unloaded it on this parasite. And I threw him off my farm. I said, "What, are you kidding me? You're charging me $3,000 a year for insurance, and you come up with this?" And I said, "Where do you get off at this? Raising my insurance rates year after year after year." And he said, "Well, you heard of Joplin, right? The tornado?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we had to raise the rates because of Joplin." I said, "Do I live in Joplin?" I hate. Am I allowed to say the word hate on the radio? I hate the Farm Bureau. They are just a miserable corporation acting as an insurance company. Come and get me, Farm Bureau. Let's do it. Let's go head to head on the radio.
It's all insurance companies. They're all freeloaders. They're all parasites. It's a service that you're paying for, and then when you expect to have to use it, oh, who are you? Where do you come from? Oh, we got to look at your policy. Oh, in a fine print, yeah, we're not covered under that. You didn't ask me about that. I said, well, when I asked you, when I was writing the policy, I asked you, what won't I be covered under? If you're on the road, you're driving your vehicle down the road, because I asked him, because I was heading your way one time.
Hey, hold that thought, Joey. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Joey's with us live in Michigan. We're talking about the cold and things you need to know about it, and also wanting to talk about the cold. Mark in Illinois. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, good morning. I think a lot of people probably forget, but there's probably people here from Illinois that are up in Chicago area that might remember this, but I think it was 2012 or 2013, all the cars on Lake Michigan were frozen. And they were it was all along the whole lake.
You're talking about frozen in place because of the mist that came down. It froze the tires.
The lake was raging.
Yep.
The lake was, the waves were raging at that day, and also rained ice, and it was just sub-zero temperatures, and every car was just frozen right where it stood with lights on, everything.
Well, I don't remember that, Mark, but I know in 1979 and 1980 I'd be there visiting relatives, and in the older neighborhoods, the cars were snowed in, row after row, and you couldn't hardly even drive down because it was the older neighborhoods. You had parking on either side and about one-lane traffic, and the drifts were over the top of the car, and if somebody was able to chisel the car out, and I remember back somewhere in 89, I was coming back from Colorado in a snowstorm, and they shut the interstate down on the bottom of Lake Michigan in the Gary, Indiana area, because I stopped by some relatives, and they says, where are you staying tonight? And I said, well, where do you think I'm staying? I'm going home. No, you're not. The highway's been shut down. So, I mean, the media has taken advantage of a problem. They've expanded upon it a little bit. I mean, it's bad. It's not good. But again, it wasn't paralyzing where they had to come with the National Guard and take people off of, 294, and it's at the junction in and around where I-65 heads to Indianapolis. That whole area was closed. I remember being in the suburbs, like on Harlem Avenue and 79th Street, where it was driving through a plowed farm field because they didn't plow the snow. And when you had 8 inches of snow on a city street, there were bumps. I mean, I was always driving a vehicle, four-wheel drive vehicle, so it didn't bother me. But a car would have ripped the muffler off or broke a wheel. I mean, I remember the day I left, the road had opened up enough. There was no exits open. I found an exit because I was low on fuel. So, I mean, yeah, it was bad. And I see Kansas, Iowa, that looks a lot worse than what normally they get. But for us, we had 8 inches of snow on Saturday. I think we've got 16 on the ground right now. It's supposed to be 19 for the high today. But this is the first time in 2 days I didn't leave the house. I really didn't need to go anywhere, and I figured why jeopardize breaking a vehicle when I didn't need to? I mean, there was nothing I needed, and I didn't want to deal with somebody else that shouldn't have been out on the road as well. And I mean, your part of the world, I was looking at pictures this morning of St. Louis, and I'm guessing you're within, an hour and a half of St. Louis, Mark?
No, I'm up here in pretty much central Illinois, south central Illinois, over by Peoria. But I think that storm was in 2012 or 2013 that paralyzed all the cars on Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, and then there was like 67 was a big snowstorm that paralyzed the whole city of Chicago. I think it was like 3-4 feet of snow. And then they were trying to move all the snow out of the city with all the big inloaders because I think the snow was like about 3 feet deep.
That was 1967?
Yeah, it was 67. Then there was another big storm that hit in 1978, 79. I think it was 79, January 79. And that was where the snow in Illinois was like about, when they were plowing the roads, it was about 6 feet tall. It was actually over the stop signs.
That's what I just said when I was in Chicago, 79 and 80.
Mm-hmm.
In the old neighborhoods, the snow was over the top of all the farms.
78, 79 is when that big storm came through and paralyzed it was tall. Out in the country. We used to have the same storms in Michigan. The roads were closed. It would be closed all week, and then the weekend it'd open up, and for like 3 weekends in a row. But think about 1967. A front end loader was a very primitive piece of equipment. 1979, they were more efficient. Today, a front end loader goes down the road at about 45 miles an hour. A 3 or 4 yard machine, very quiet, unlike the older machines with the Detroit motors, and they're racing and roaring. And I mean the semi trucks, and just how much more efficient the snow removal can be because of the much more advanced equipment. I mean, to be in a loader today, it's quiet, there's heat. I mean, the guy's in a T-shirt. I remember in the old days, you'd be sitting in a polar bear suit. So, I mean, everything changes, but I would ask one question. Based on old snow, current snow, some things most people haven't thought about, and I'm going to ask the question. When would you have to leave? And if you had to leave, what would you take? I mean, you're looking at the fires out in California. I've been listening to Deborah Tavares. Her and a woman, Alexandra J.B., they were on, I don't know if it's VLT or LVT TV. It was almost a 2-hour video, 50-50, and more, 2.5 hours. And it was taken off of YouTube already twice. But she had some very interesting points about the chemical engineering, the weather modifications, and what's taking place. And something I've been wondering, because I never thought of leaving, but if I leave, what do I have to take? Where will I go? And when I get there, what is it I can offer somebody that they would even want to help me? Just because I show up on someone's door, I'm not a refugee coming from South America expecting to get a free check
I'm expecting wherever I go, I have to earn my keep because I'm going to become a burden on somebody. So what is it I need to produce? What can I offer anybody willing to take me in? Why would they want to take me in and take care of me? And I'm looking for an answer from either one of you.
Well, I mean, I have another idea about this, all this weather phenomenon. I believe it's a judgment from God. I believe you can look back in the Bible, and you can see examples. Because how can you take snow? How come you can take snow and light it on fire?
Because you're chemtrailing it. They're putting chemicals in the sky. Yeah, I use a torch on my roof to and I got blue fire coming off the snow. And God's not putting, in my opinion, and believe me, I'm a big proponent of my Creator, big time. I mean, I don't do anything without going into a meditative state and trying to get as close to Him. Okay, go ahead.
Let me give you this idea. It's in the Bible, in the book of Exodus. It rained down fire and water upon ancient Egypt, and it was and it was hail, and the hail was on fire. Isn't that what's happening today?
Yeah, but who wrote the book, Mark? I mean, a lot of things have happened, and I ask the question all the time. You know, the Catholic Church seems to be the biggest criminal organization on the earth, and since about, 1820, or is it 1650? I can't remember numbers like that. But the Jesuits have been involved in every publishing there since. So any book, I think it's 1860-ish, every book that's published has to go through a group of Jesuits so they can only allow what they want being told. So if that's true, how do I know what's written in a book somebody didn't write? You know, because the Catholic Church has the biggest, what do they call them, telescopes on the southern tips of South America. What are they looking for in the sky? So, I mean, I don't want to argue about religion because I'm very close to it. But again, I can't believe the people. I mean, when a priest is raping a boy and finds that to be a great commodity and a pope doesn't do anything about it, I have to question what he's feeling. I have to question the words that's coming out of his mouth. How honorable are they? And I can't honor and I can't follow the path of a man that thinks it's okay to sodomize children, boys, girls, or anything. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from the books, and some of the ones I've listened to you talk about, the older books coming from Sumeria and Babylonia, those, if they're accurate books and haven't been tampered with, I go with that. But how many books have been modified over time, and how do you know they've been modified? You weren't there. I weren't there.
Well, I mean, if you read the ancient Hebrew,
I'm not up on that ancient Hebrew. I don't read that. I have enough trouble reading English.
Mark, let me just interrupt for just a minute. I'd like to answer Joey's original question before we get off on a tangent. Joey, you mentioned that if you showed up at someone's house, you would be a burden. Now, I know you, okay? But let's say I didn't know you and you came to my house and you just showed up. My first thought, without knowing who you are, you're just some guy I don't know, I've never seen before, don't know anything about. My first thought is you're going to be a burden. Exactly what you said. Not because it's you. It could be anybody. But now I'm thinking this is a burden. This is going to be a worse situation. Now, what do you do? Okay. Well, let's take the Mike Ma approach. And by the way, class, if you'd like to look up Mike Ma, he spells his last name M-A-H. You can find him all over the internet. So what would Mike Ma do? I'm sorry, Joey?
No Stress Mike.
NoStressMike.com is his website. So Mike Ma, if he were to show up and he knocked on the door and you answered the door, he would have a great big smile on his face, no matter how bad it was. He'd have a big smile on his face, and he would say, before you said anything, he would tell you that he sees that you have this problem. He would notice something that was a problem for you, and he would say, I see you have this problem, and I'm here to help you fix it. That's his approach. So initially, he would diffuse the situation. He would turn that negative feeling that you have, gosh, this guy's a burden, into, what? The guy already knows we have this problem, and he's here to help. Not, I'd like to help. I'm here to help. That's why I'm here. I am here to help you with that problem. And when he gets held up by robbers, he looks at them and he smiles and he says, I see, it looks like you're in pain in your left leg. I can see it from here. I can fix that for you. And then they put their guns down. We'll be right back. Wow, time flies, doesn't it, Joey? So in Minneapolis, right outside of that area, there's a county called White Bear Township, and the water tower froze. So, class, if you think that the municipalities, that they're going to solve all these problems, well, it's not true. So those balls that are on these posts that are water towers, they can freeze. And yes, it did happen in White Bear Township. Joey, the images that you're talking about, there's a guy that has an image of his toilet. And in the toilet, it looks like it's packed with frost and ice and snow. And there's just a small hole in the center of the toilet bowl that is not frozen. So each time he flushed the toilet, there would be more and more ice building up in the toilet. Then there's the toilet lid is covered with ice and snow from the inside of just flushing the toilet. That's how cold it was. So in addition, did you see the pictures of people putting their clothes outside, clothes that are cotton and polyester blend? The polyester became so stiff that you could take a pair of pants and bulge out the legs as if your legs are in the pants, and they would stand up in the snow. Then you could take a shirt and bulge out the shirt with long sleeves or short sleeves so that it would be like the person was in them, but nobody would be in them. You could put the shirt on top of the pants, and you could have what looked like the equivalent of a scarecrow with nothing inside supporting the shirt and pants. Literally. That's the kind of cold we're talking about. Did you see those, Joey?
I did. When I went to give extra hay and straw to the goats, I figured I'd just quick do something without putting all the extra clothes on. Well, my body's warm. I'm walking through 12 inches of snow. It's sticking to my pants up to my knees. By the time I got back to the truck, and I was only out of the truck for about 8 minutes, my pants felt like those pants you showed the pictures of. It's like cardboard. And I'm in the vehicle. On the way home, I hit the grocery store. Those few minutes in the vehicle, and I left the heat on full while I was going to attend to the animals. And then in the grocery store, by the time I got in there, they were still frozen on the way out, but my pants were soaking wet. Now, what people don't realize is if that's on your skin blisters. And, I did that because I knew I wasn't out there. But if you were stranded out there and that happened, you might as well figure on frostbite. You might as well figure out a couple of scenarios that you hadn't planned on. But I don't think people, because they've been too distracted by the news, they don't do enough of their own homework. Is Mark with us, or did he leave?
No, Mark had to go.
Okay. And my question is, somebody's got to be responsible for themselves. And I would urge people, if they want to learn, next time it gets cold, don't go outside for an hour. Just go outside and see what happens, see how fast things are. I mean, for a couple of minutes, then go back out for a couple more, because, I have, over years, doing construction work, have cut myself. So I have different nerves I've cut. So my fingers will tend to get hot or burn when they start getting cold, and I don't have a good attention span for how cold it is. So I'm extra cautious. So, I mean, you have to have some kind of a brain pattern to know you're even in jeopardy. And I can't even imagine. But let's talk about, so the weather got cold. Let's say this is the mini ice age preview of what Rick's been talking about the day after tomorrow. How many people would be able to leave? And if you were leaving, where would you go? And are you able to get far enough away before you freeze in your car? I don't have an answer to that. I question that all the time in myself. And I do ask my Creator. I do ask my God, to help me take care of that. And I don't have answers for that because I haven't ever been put to that yet. But it's things that I always think about, and I'm sure you have as well.
Joey, your grandparents came here with almost nothing. My grandparents came here with almost nothing. They were tough, but they were younger.
They were hardened, they were younger, and we're not that way anymore.
Yeah. Joey, hey, thanks so much for being with us. Thank you so much for being with us and spending your time this morning with us at USA Prepares. That's Joey in Michigan. Coming up, 5G, Joe Esposito. And I'm going to be talking about electromagnetic radiation and the dangers and what to do about it. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Joe Esposito's with us. Stop Smart Meters in Oklahoma.org. Stop Smart Meters in Oklahoma.org. Today we're going to be talking about dangerous frequencies. We're going to be talking about wireless. And welcome, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Vincent. Hi, class. How you doing today? You're probably freezing.
Yeah. Joe, we're talking about wireless, and you know what? The way I can see this very clearly after all these years, it's so simple. The designers, the engineers, the CEOs of these corporations that are foisting this dangerous, killing, disease-causing technology on us, they are not looking at our needs. They're looking at the machine needs. What does the machine need to do? What frequencies does the machine need to have in order to operate, with total disregard of what people need?
Correct.
I think that breaks it down into a nutshell.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
Okay. So, class, before the broadcast started, I was chatting with Joe, and we're talking about modem routers. I have one. I've got one right here in the studio. And it's a device that is provided by a telephone company. It comes with the internet package that they provide. And I have an access to this device. I can log into it. And here's what I do. I type in the following. And this may work for you too. So if you go to your browser and you type in the following, 192. Now this is all in numbers, okay? All in numbers. 192 dot. Now a dot is a period. So 192 dot. 168 dot. 1.1. 192.168.1.1. When I type that into my browser, it brings up a screen, and it says the telephone utility company's name. It has the name of the modem router, the brand and the model. And then it comes up with 5 buttons that I can click with my mouse. One of them says modem status. One says quick setup. One says wireless setup. One says utilities. And the last one says advanced setup. So there are these 5 buttons on that initial screen. And I can click wireless setup. And then I can say disable wireless. You click the little button that says disable. There's another one that says enable. So meaning turn it off or turn it on. So mine is turned off. Okay? My wireless is turned off. So do I have a modem router that can support wireless? Yes. Is it turned on? No. Why? Because I turned it off. Why? Because when the utility company, the telephone utility company installed it, they turned it on. And on the front of it, it has this little wireless on the device, the modem router. It has this little light that tells you wireless is working. Okay? Looks like a little antenna. Well, I know mine is off because, I believe mine is off because when they had it turned on, I went in to configure it. I went into wireless setup 192.168.1.1, and I went into the wireless setup and I said disable. Then I applied that selection, and the light went out. So unless the light is lying to me when it's, saying it's off when it's really on, unless that's lying to me, my wireless is off. And when people come to my house, they're looking, they'll bring their notebook computer if they're staying for a few days, and they're looking for, hey, do you have wireless? No. Nope, don't have wireless. Now, I don't go into the rest of the story like, yeah, I used to have it for a little, short time when, while the technician was here, and I turned it off. I don't go into any of that. I just say I don't have it. And what I do is I say, here in the bedroom where you're staying, here is an Ethernet cable, and you may plug this into your device. Now, if you have an Apple device that doesn't have a connector, you're out of luck. Okay? Why buy Apple products anyway? Because Apple, I believe, is killing us with electromagnetic radiation. They're one of the companies that, heck, with an Apple, you don't need a DVD ROM drive. You don't need one of those. You don't need jacks on your devices. Heck, everything's wireless. Well, I object to that. So it's not my job to provide wireless for people who stay at our house. It's not my job. And if they need it, they're out of luck. They can go someplace else. You know what it is, Joe Esposito? I'm now at the point where it's my farm. When I say mine, I mean my family.
Right.
And my rules.
That's right.
And my rules. I do not have to accommodate people who want to bring their cell phones into my house. I don't have to do that. And I'm not going to do that. How do you feel about that, Joe?
No, you're exactly right in what you're saying. We had a group of people over at my house yesterday. There's an elders group starting here, or has been going for a while. So several of those people came to my house, and I put on the front door before they came in, no wireless, no cell phones, no any wireless. I mean, I can't take it anymore. I'm wearing a $2,000 suit to protect myself from all the cancer and all the radiation that's out there now, which most people don't have a clue on because they can't read it with their HFE 35C meter that I can. And these people, you're right. Most of them don't have any knowledge of what's being done to them. And that's what I'm all about. This Saturday here, I'm giving a talk at Will Rogers Library in Claremore from 10 to 12. And we're going to show and document all this. And people don't understand where wireless came from. They don't understand the foundations of it. They don't understand that the only people that had it was the military in 84. And it was used in weapons of war. That's what it was for. And that's what they're doing with it now, but only we are being creamed with weaponized microwave radiation. So you're right, Vince.
Okay. I'm looking at an article, and it's from a magazine called ELUXE, magazine.com. Article title is Frightening Frequencies, the Dangers of 5G and What You Can Do About Them. Okay, so one of the things it says is many studies have been associated with low-level radio frequency exposure. And a litany of health effects have been studied, including DNA single and double strand breaks, which leads to cancer, oxidative damage, which leads to tissue deterioration and premature aging. Now, maybe that's all it takes for people to get on board with us and try to stop smart meters and electromagnetic radiation and cell phones. Okay, so you're going to look older before your time, class. Okay, is that enough to do it? Hopefully that's all it's going to take. Disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability, melatonin reduction leading to insomnia and increasing cancer risks, disruption of brain glucose metabolism, and generation of stress proteins leading to a myriad of diseases. That's what it says. So what are we talking about? We're talking about exposure to electromagnetic radiation that you cannot see with your eye. You cannot taste it. And in many cases, you can't feel it. However, there are some cases when you can feel it because the government corporation has developed a technology using these millimeter microwaves that they blast people with. So let's say there's a protesting group and the government corporation says, you know what, I think these guys don't get it. We don't want them here. We want them to disperse. They can take this device. They can project millimeter microwaves onto them. There's no sound. There's no boom. There's no noise. There's no projectiles that are flying that you can see. Just millimeter microwave radiation that cooks the person's skin. And they can't stand it.
That's 30 gigahertz, Vince. And just think 5G is 24 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz. We don't even have stuff to measure that stuff unless you use a mass spectrometer, and that costs like $15,000-$30,000. But you're right. You're exactly right.
Joe, we did a number of broadcasts, and this may sound like I'm off on a tangent, but I'm not. We did a number of broadcasts with Dr. Judy Wood, and she was a PhD engineering instructor at Clemson University. She was fired. She wrote a book called 9/11, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of an energy-directed weapon. Now, I have seen in her book pictures of people jumping out of the windows of the World Trade Center. Jumping out of the windows. Taking their clothes off and jumping out of the windows. Now, what I'm trying to do is draw this mental picture. If you are in a fire, if the building is on fire, would you take your clothes off? Of course not. You'd put more clothes on to protect you. These people are taking their clothes off and they're jumping out of the window. And they're not near the fire. I think that is the evidence of what we're talking about. Joe Esposito's with us. So I have in front of me the book that I'm talking about, which is called Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11. It's written by Dr. Judy Wood. This is like a coffee table book class. Lots of glossy, all the pages, all 500 pages are glossy. Lots of detailed photographs. And I'm looking on page 32. On page 32, there is the tower before it came down. And there are people who have taken their shirts off. They've stripped down. They're standing on 2 floors where there's no fire. There's smoke, but there's no fire. They have taken their the top half of their clothing off, and they are jumping out the window. There must be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There must be 50 people I'm looking at hanging out of windows, halfway out. Now, would you be in a skyscraper hanging out halfway out of a window? Most people are terrified to go on a 6-foot ladder, okay? And these people are hundreds of feet in the air, looking down, took their shirt off, and then they're jumping. It's raining people. They're jumping to their absolute certain death. They're being cooked, in my opinion, by this energy that's called active denial. And that's what our government corporations have built. Active denial. Cooking you from the inside. Where do you go? There's no place to go when you're on fire on the inside. And we're talking about that kind of technology being deployed every 100 or a couple hundred of feet everywhere in every city in the United States. That's what we're talking about. You will be cooked. Joe, have I lost my mind?
No. Listen, there's Dana Ashley has a YouTube up. It's called Wireless Warfare Exposed. People need to watch that. It helps you understand. Back when I was a kid, Vince, you were probably a little too young for that. But they had fluoroscopes. You put your feet in this box, and you could see the bones in your shoes, right?
I remember that. I'm not that. I'm not that young.
Okay.
I'm 67.
Okay, I'm sorry. But so today, think about this. You airport folks. I quit. I was raised on the airlines. Okay, I've been on every airplane they started with. I quit when TSA came in. All right, I won't do it. And so there's a video she has up where their TSA they're using millimeter radiation on these new devices people have to walk through. So they show you a picture of what to expect. And here's the pictures of your bones. You can see your bones in these pictures. That is X-rays, just like, the fluoroscopes. And this is your whole body. But just think these things are opened, so the stuff's flying, the radiation's flying everywhere. So TSA workers are starting to get sick and die. I mean, they're at the tip of the spear. They're at the front of what's happening here, what's going to happen to all of us. You're right, yes.
I've been asked to travel to certain locations, and I cut it really short very quickly. I just say I don't fly.
Yeah.
I don't say why. I just say, hey, can you? No, I don't fly. If I can't get there with my own vehicle, I'm not going. I'm not going because I will not be subjected to the airports. And there are a bunch of other things they do, like at Syracuse International Airport. I've read stories about how they have these chambers. They actually call them doors. So if they want to lock down the airport, if they want to lock you in, you go through one door, which is a compartment, and then they can lock the door behind you and lock the door in front of you, and you're stuck. You're stuck in this glass cell. There is no getting out of it. And the only other time, and unless you've experienced that class, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But when I was at Ford Aerospace in California, where I saw Intelsat 5 being made, they put me in this room. I had to walk through security. You walk in one side of like a phone booth, door closed behind you, and then you're not getting out until they open the other door on the other side. You're in this glass cage. That's what's happening at Syracuse International Airport, and it's being deployed all over the country. We'll be right back. Joe Esposito's with us, and class, we received communiques during the broadcast. As soon as I mentioned 9/11 and the towers and Dr. Judy Wood, signal was lost from some of our class. It was gone. And it came back. So I just want to let you know that we did not do that. It happened. Joe in Arkansas, you're on with Joe Esposito and me, Vince Finelli.
Hey, good morning, guys. Kind of struck a nerve with me when you brought up Judy Wood, because I've been carrying around in my truck. It's called Star Wars Beam Weapon 5. And it's pictures of the fire trucks and the police cars at the Trade Center. And the engine blocks were melted. The front of the trucks were just wilted away like flowers. The cars, the door handles are missing. Something really funny going on there.
Well, have you seen her book, the one that I referred to, 9/11, Where the Towers Go?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen it? Okay. Well, there are pictures in that book of vehicles that are burned partially, destroyed a part of the vehicle, and the rest of it is fine. There are pictures of vehicles surrounded by pieces of paper. And the vehicles are damaged, but the paper, which burns at 451 degrees Fahrenheit, is fine. There's no question in my mind that we're talking about an energy-directed weapon. If you look at the videos or the still images of these really tall I-beams that are falling down from the top of the tower down toward the ground, and they just disappear in free fall. So as they're falling, they disappear. And you can see them getting shorter, and gone. Right? That's what I'm talking about.
I worked on top of the World Trade Center. Build antennas on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to see
that building was pretty strong.
I saw the steel on the top 2 floors because we had to weld the tower base to the roof of the building. And all the dehumidifiers, all the heavy equipment was on them top 2 floors. That building was not built flimsy at all. Not at all.
Joe in Arkansas, let me ask you this. In that building, there were thousands of toilets made out of porcelain. There were water tanks that could supply water to the building because the municipality couldn't do it. They had to pump water up to the top floor, right, or near the top floor, so that you'd have water in the building. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Okay. So if that's the case, where did those water tanks go? Well, how come they disappeared? How come the toilets have all disappeared? How come the sinks, the stainless steel stalls in the men's and ladies' rooms, where did they go? Where's all this metal? Where are the filing cabinets?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about things that can sustain extreme heat, like ceramic, like porcelain. Where's the granite from the floors? Where are the I-beams? Where did it all go?
Yeah, I spoke to a person who worked the scene, and they said the same thing. There was no filing cabinets, no computers, no desks. Everything was gone. There was nothing in the debris. It was all gone.
Mm-hmm. And there's another thing that's very strange about this. If you were to look at that building, if you were to stand on the street level and look up, and then think, okay, let's squeeze all the air out of this building. Let's compress it. How big of a pile would it make? And the answer is it'd be a lot bigger than the pile of rubble that was left when the towers disappeared, right? Where did they go?
The people that did the math said it would be 31 floors high.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. But it wasn't.
No.
What was left was nowhere near 31 floors high.
No.
Think about this. You know, when you bulldoze down a house, you're left with a big pile of stuff. Because all the air, or a lot of the air, is removed. That's inside the house. Like I'm in a studio here that has 4 walls and a ceiling. So most of this room is air. But if we bulldozed it down, it'd still be a big pile. Where's that pile?
Yep.
Yeah. What else can you tell us about that experience regarding the World Trade Center and microwave radiation? Have you talked with anybody who was concerned or felt the heat of this microwave radiation? And here's where I'm going with this. That radiation has to be absorbed by something that is either metal or has moisture in it. So, for example, if these radio frequencies were beamed at a person, the moisture in the person's body, and we're mostly water, would absorb those microwaves, and we would feel it. We'd feel this extreme heat, and we'd be burning from the inside. But a piece of paper doesn't have much moisture in it. And that's why I believe that paper survived, but metal didn't. But I still don't understand where the porcelain went. You know, where all these toilet bases and tanks went. Where'd they go? Do you have any feel for anyone that do you have any information from someone you've talked to that was there that said, man, I was being cooked?
I have. This is just hearsay, but witnesses that were fleeing the building had looked back and seen other people behind them, and that they said that they were vaporizing. I don't know if this makes any sense or not.
Well, okay, and Dr. Judy Wood was very cautious about the word vaporizing because that would indicate a scientific principle. And I just called her, by the way, during the bottom of the hour break, and all I got was her answering machine after a lot of rings. And that's as successful as I've been over the last probably 3 or 4 years trying to reach her. I can only get her answering machine, but she doesn't call me back. So that either means that the phone number is somebody else's phone number now, or she doesn't look at her messages, or she doesn't call back. It's one of those. That's what it is. But I cannot get her to come back on the air. And I cannot, and I've been unsuccessful having her return my phone calls. It's not that I don't want to. Maybe she's been threatened. I would think that could be the case. And I've asked her many times her opinion about this. What does she think? And she would not tell me. She would tell me, well, let's just talk about the facts. Let's just talk about the evidence. And then you draw your own conclusions. And that's what she would say. And she got fired. She literally lost her job because she wrote the definitive book on what happened. The evidence. 500 pages. And I'm not rounding up and I'm not rounding down. It's 500 pages. Exactly. And the book is heavy. Class, if it's still available, and I don't even know if you can get it anymore, but if you want to be frightened, there are charts and graphs and engineering discussions. This isn't not just something to read. This is not just a course in what happened. This is like a degree in what happened. At the master's level, at least, in my opinion. Maybe even the doctoral level.
Yeah,
Joe, any other thoughts you want to share with us, Joe, in Arkansas, about?
I'm just looking at the pictures. I mean, I got pictures of the fire trucks, and it just blows me away. But I guess the thing I just want to say to everybody, question everything. Nothing is beyond questioning.
Joe, so you've got experience with welding, right? You've got experience with construction?
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer this, but have you ever experienced, fireworks where you put firecrackers in when you were younger, played with fireworks? I have.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does this look like, I've heard people say that, nuclear devices, they blew up the building. Does it look like any kind of conventional explosives that you've ever played with on a miniature level, meaning fireworks? Because it doesn't look like that to me.
Not in these pictures. Not when engine blocks are melted. No way.
I'm just trying to think. That arc welder that you might have used, or a MIG welder, pretty hot flame, hot enough to melt steel.
Yeah.
How much energy does it take to, at a distance, melt an engine block? At a distance. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
So this is a new
book. In her book, she mentioned about there was some type of government laboratory out on Long Island, and it was a direct line of sight from that laboratory to the Trade Center. Or is that
Here's what I suggest you consider doing, class. You can go to a search engine and you can type USA Prepares. In many cases, to me, USA Prepares is one word. But a lot of times it's two words. It's USA. Second word would be Prepares. So you can do a search on USA Prepares, spell it both ways, comma, Judy Wood, and you'll hear the interviews. And I got to tell you, we only got through maybe a quarter of the book. We would do a one hour class on this subject, and we would cover 3 of the 500 pages of the book. And then the next time we were on, I'd put a bookmark in there, and we go with the next 3 pages. And then the next time we're on the air, the next 3 pages. We're dealing with some technology that is absolutely terrifying. And if they can take down a building with this technology and get people to jump out of windows, what can they do to your house that's wood, aluminum siding, vinyl siding? Joe Esposito, I think it's time we take the gloves off and say exactly what people should do. So I'll go first, and feel free to join in if you'd like.
Yeah.
So, class, how do we do this? Okay, we know that these devices are dangerous. So, if there's no customers, there's no reason to install this technology. So, here's my recommendation: refuse to buy anything from AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and U.S. Cellular. Don't buy any wireless appliances. Don't buy anything that says smart. Okay? Smart speakers, wireless speakers, Alexa, Exo, and shut off your wireless router. And don't buy a new car with all of this wireless technology in it, because your new car is going to communicate with the wireless technology as you drive down the road. So let's go Galt, G-A-L-T. Who is John Galt? I am John Galt. You are John Galt. We are pulling the plug, and we are not participating in this mindless, dangerous technology. We are not going to support the beast. We are not going to feed the beast. We're going to get rid of our smart meters. And I think this is going to happen. But I'm not advocating. I'd like to, but I'm not advocating this. I think that people are going to take those 22 cartridges that they've saved up for a long time, and when they've had enough, they are going to start using these 5G and cell phone tower antennas and transmitters for targets. I think that's going to happen. I am not advocating it. So Verizon, don't come after me. Well, actually, go ahead. Come after me if you want. I'll expose you more. And here's the promise. Any one of these companies that we're exposing how they're trying to kill us, they come after me, I will exponentially increase my response against them. Exponentially. Class, here is your homework. Share USA Prepares with all of your friends and family, because there are only a few of us left who are doing the exposing of these terrible things that are happening to us. And it's not just the smart meters, it's everything. For profit. These companies are interested in money, 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 and power. They are not interested in protecting you. They're not. Joe, your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right, Vince. When they brought wireless to the American public in '84, it was just the military that had wireless. Okay, and George Carlo was the guy that helped do all that. And if you'll listen to his transcript, he tells you none of it was tested for health issues. None of it. It's never been tested, and it still hasn't been tested. And 5G has never been tested. They're still coming. George Carlo's telling you they slipped it past the public. They got it past us, and they said they felt it was safe. There was no science that brought it all in. And there's still no science. If you want to live, you're going to have to not do this stuff. You're going to have to protect yourself and learn how to protect yourself, because this is nothing but death. It's killing the creation, God's creation. We can't handle this. We are electrical beings. So what you're saying,
Joe,
Vince, is absolutely right on. Thank you.
Joe, do you know anyone near you who has a collector smart meter with that rubber duck type antenna? Do you know anybody near you?
Well, I'm not familiar with those. That usually from what we use is here, as far as I know, is we have the meters, and then there's these antennas every, mile away that everything runs to, and then it goes to a collector meter that covers 125 square miles.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, I think, class, you might want to try experimenting with putting screen and completely metal coffee cans over your smart meter and see what happens. See if you get some complaints. But you're at your own risk if you do it. Your electric company may give you a real tough time. Joe, we're going to ramp this up. Unless this is just the beginning. I've had it in a lot of areas, a lot of ways. I'm mad. I'm not taking any more, and we're going to go get them. So I'm looking forward to having you come back some more, and let's keep getting them.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.